Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Thursday's edition, and we are broadcasting from, once again, beautiful Southern California. Happy to have you with us today, and I want to welcome my partner from the East Coast, Jeffrey. Welcome back. Happy to have you.
Thank you. And tomorrow, I'm leaving on a plane to go to your other home.
Yes, you are heading down to South Florida. I will be down there next week also. Jeffrey, there's a lot going on today.
It's always on Thursday.
Always on Thursday. It's a busy news day. I love your headline. We're going to talk a little bit about the headline behind Jeffrey a little bit later in the show. But Jeffrey, let's start with sort of breaking news that just took place. The House of Representatives has passed a bill basically to protect women athletes, and of course, it's being positioned as, oh, those hateful Republicans, they're against the transgenders. No, it's a bill to protect women athletes in college against guys pretending that they're going to be women by transitioning from a guy with a penis to a woman to compete in women's events. Jeffrey, not a single Democrat in the House voted for it, and it's unlikely to go anywhere in the Senate. What's your take on this?
I have two takes on it. When I was in high school, I was on the football team and the track team. And if I played against a woman, she'd kick my butt. So on one hand, but on the other hand, Caitlyn Jenner, who was an Olympic champion, says that's ridiculous. You can't have a man competing against a woman.
Right.
And my feeling is, if person does a transition before puberty, before they get all the male strength and everything, then that's different. But doing it when they're a late teenager, they have all the man stuff. And I'm not even talking about the private parts. I'm talking about the hormones.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is where a society goes too far, in my opinion. I would support this bill 100% what the House has voted on today, as did, I haven't seen the final vote count yet, but it's probably straight along party lines.
Yep.
It's another situation where, women deserve to be protected in college sports, and having a guy compete against women, whether it be track and field, swimming. I mean, that's why in this country for generations we segregated men's sports and women's sports. And now this radical ideology.
That's the reason for Title IX.
Sure it is, absolutely. That Title IX goes all the way back to the early 70s. So now we have this radical ideology about transitioning people from a man to a woman to a man. You pick your piece. Look, it's never an issue from woman to man because it doesn't, quote as Scotty says, it doesn't compute, okay? But when it's the other way around, when it's a dude trying to become a woman, then that puts up just the physical development at that particular age, 18 to 21, which are your college years, it puts women at a disadvantage. So, yeah.
Their argument is stupid.
Yeah,
because they're saying, well, if you don't agree with the bill, if you don't agree with letting trans compete against women, well, you're some sort of bigot.
Yeah, that's such bogus arguments. I mean, you're trying to protect the integrity of the sport. Anyhow, the fact of the matter is, again, this has gotten into the lexicon of where we are as a country nowadays, and I think it's ridiculous. This represents an infantile, small, tiny fraction of the public, and yet it's garnering these type of headlines. And the fact is, with Democrats controlling the Senate, the bill's going nowhere.
And it's more than just the women competing against the men. It's the guy, I'll just use the word, gets on the team, and it takes away a spot from a woman who's practiced her whole life to get on the team.
That's exactly right. I couldn't agree with you more. And again, this is typical Democratic politics. They don't give a damn about the women. They couldn't care less. They want the issue, and they want to frame the issue so that another constituencies can say, well, hey, I better vote Democrat because I'm trans and the Democrats support me. And that's what this is about. I mean, don't kid yourself, folks. That is the only reason that they're, in this situation.
Caitlyn
But
Jenner is a Republican.
I know that. Yeah. Now, on the other, quote, hot button social issue of the day, and this is, I've been saying this, this is a dead loser for Republicans. The abortion pill ruling's been delayed by the Supreme Court. Okay. And here's an interesting piece, Jeffrey. I caught this news piece today. 80% of Americans disagree with the Dobbs decision returning the power to the states. I think the way the question's probably worded is, it may not be worded that way, but the fact that 4/5, 4 out of 5 people are saying that was the wrong call, that's not great. However, on the other flip side of that, a majority of Americans support some type of ban after 15 weeks. So I've been saying this for a long time. This is a losing issue for Republicans. Republicans are now starting to be aware of it. And some people say, well, Mark, the conservative, we fought this fight for 40 years and we finally won. Well, what'd you win? You won the right to lose elections is what you did. And as society has changed during that 40-year fight, now we find ourselves in a situation where the majority of the American people believe a woman should have a right, a la 80%. And at the same time, a majority feel, hey, there's got to be some limits. So there's a middle ground here. I'm just not certain either party's found that middle ground yet.
Well, I'm not talking from the political point, okay? This is from the moral point. If someone believes that abortion is murder, and I'm not saying what my position is,
right,
then it's murder at 14 weeks and it's murder at 15 weeks. It's as simple as that. So I don't believe in this 15-week thing. Either you're going to say it's okay or not. I think that with the abortion pill, the Supreme Court, if it makes sense for all abortions to be the decision of the state, well, it makes sense then for the abortion pill, at least in my humble opinion. And I also think that every other medical decision is a state decision. And I think that's why it should be by the states. It's not banning. Republicans let the Democrats take the lead and called it an abortion ban. It's not an abortion ban.
No, it's not. But you're right, they did.
And it's a state decision, just like every other medical thing. Medicare is a state decision.
Well, you have certain states like Florida that just passed a ban after 6 weeks. Now, again, I'm no medical expert, but a lot of women may not even know they're pregnant up to 6 weeks. On the other hand...
Oh, I didn't know I was pregnant after 6 weeks.
Right, exactly. On the other hand, you have a state like, I think New Hampshire has it 20 weeks. I may be off on that by a week or two, but again, the majority of the public believes 15 weeks is sort of the magic number. I don't know whether it's right, wrong, or
there are some that think that 40 weeks, as long as the baby doesn't come out, you can kill it.
Yeah, I know. That's sort of disgusting. So, again, I'm bringing this up to illustrate a couple points. One, since that decision, which some conservatives claim is a victory, it's led to a Pyrrhic victory, meaning, yeah, okay, great.
You're right.
You won it, but look what you got. Now, in recent elections since that decision, it has not bode well. So, again, when you have, as society changes and something is ingrained as a right and then it's taken away, that tends to piss people off. And my point is, when it comes to elections, be careful what you ask for. Because if the majority of the public is against you, you could be right on every other issue, but if that's a focal issue that's causing people to vote, then they may not vote for you, which is why political candidates such as, they asked the Trump campaign for comments on it. Trump said, the decision's been rendered. It's the state's decision, not my decision as a campaign to editorialize on it. They don't want to touch this hot potato. DeSantis signed the 6-week bill at the dead of night and then went to Liberty University to give a speech. So, I mean, certain things will benefit certain segments of the public, certain things will not. One thing this has opened up, and anyone with two sets of eyes can see, again, ethically, you may believe it's the right thing to do, or you may believe it's the wrong thing to do. But one thing is crystal clear, Jeffrey, this as an issue in politics from a Republican side is a loser. And if
It killed DeSantis.
What's that?
It killed DeSantis. It's killing DeSantis.
It could. I mean, the Florida legislature is very conservative, more conservative than DeSantis is even. But passing that bill, you can better believe that's going to be an issue if DeSantis were to win the nomination. We'll talk about DeSantis and Trump a little bit later in the show. But again, when you have that type of numbers, Jeffrey, it's really a paradox. 80% disagree with Dobbs, but a majority of Americans want 15 weeks as anything after that is illegal. So your blue states are certainly not going to do anything to hinder that. To them, as you correctly said, you can abortion up to when the baby's born. But in certain red states, much more conservative. So anyhow.
Well, Fetterman wants it until the baby's born, I think, though. He's not right in the head anyway. I mean, the poor guy.
Who are you talking about?
Fetterman.
Oh God. Separate issue. We'll get on to.
The interesting thing is, New York, it was actually, New York City was passed first by Koch. And then Giuliani, when he became mayor, supported it.
Mm-hmm.
So it says a lot about Giuliani, not because he supported it, but because he'll go where the wind goes.
Yeah. Well, let's move away from those two, quote, social issues for a while. And let's talk a little economics here. McCarthy, unveiled a budget basically that allows an extension of the debt by $1.5 trillion for a year, and it reduces spending back to 2022 levels. And over a period of time, as a result of those spending adjustments, the government would save $4.5 trillion. Now, I have to drill down to see if that number is accurate. And I can't attest to that today here on the show, folks. But one thing is clear. Biden rejected it. And again, they're using this buzzword, MAGA budget. Anything related to an issue that Democrats don't like, it's now a MAGA issue. So
I would like to find a reporter that has the guts to say to him, what do you mean by MAGA?
Yeah. Well, it's tough to get him to answer any question anytime, much less. So, but that's what they're doing. And ultimately here, Jeffrey, this is going to come down to a showdown. It always does. And I see people digging in their sides politically. And this is, again, instead of doing if this was a business and you were negotiating, you don't negotiate from a mutually assured destruction point of view. But that's what's going to happen here.
And every time there's been a time where the budget hasn't passed, the budget ceiling, it's been the Republicans' fault. Even a couple of years ago when it was Schumer's fault, they blamed the Republicans.
Well, the media is going to do that. You know that. But this group in the House right now, they don't seem to care. They're like, to hell with them. I don't care. We're going to put our foot down and stop this crazy spending come hell or high water. And you know what? High water's rising here.
Well, I think that every time Biden says it's the MAGA Republicans, the Republicans would say it's the senile Democrats.
Yeah. And again, that'll go nowhere. Ultimately, when it gets right up to the edge and the stock market tanks 5% in a day and money market accounts are going haywire and they break the buck and bonds can't be issued and all hell starts to break loose, they'll come to an agreement.
You remember what happened last time? What upset everyone is they couldn't get into the national parks.
I know. Wasn't that crazy? It's going to be a lot worse than that this time. And I fully expect we're going to go through that train wreck. I don't see anything getting in the way. If the Biden White House is taking the position they are, where they're not going to negotiate it, then, and Republicans are saying, fine, you don't want to negotiate? We're not going to pass the budget. And we'll just shut it all down. And I think it's gotten to a point where both sides will say, okay, we'll both mutually assured destruct. That's how I call them as I see them, and as of right now, that's how I see it.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So,
They're not going to change their minds until
no, they'll go through the. We'll go through and we'll get a pretty good glimpse of what mutually assured destruction looks like, and it's just sad that we're in this position because there could be compromise worked out here, but Democrats have this lust for continually spending money we don't have. And
I thought McCarthy had a really good compromise.
I thought so too. You want to elaborate? Go ahead and elaborate on that.
Well, it wasn't cutting off the debt ceiling at all. Mm-hmm. It was let's roll back 2 years and let's keep on negotiating. And we're at a point where at least we're doing a little budget cutting, but we're not doing what you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
No, so it was a compromise.
Of course, to you and I, the proposals seem reasonable. We're reasonable people, and we're center-right people. Leftists don't care about that, and neither do Democrats. Democrats' mantra is spend, 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 tax the rich. Everybody who doesn't agree with us is a MAGA Republican. Anyhow, that's what their position is. All right, other news today. SpaceX, launched their rocket, okay? Unfortunately, it blew up over the Gulf of Mexico. So, there was some success in it. I mean, this rocket is twice the thrust power of the old Saturn V rocket that launched people to the moon, Jeffrey. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the launch today, but the launch seemed to go off good, but then in flight, a blow up.
It wouldn't turn the right way or something like that. I mean, I was watching, but all I saw was the boom after,
Yeah, the first minute of it looked okay. It was a minute and a half. I was into flight. It looked great, accelerating, looked like positive. And again, in all fairness,
test without people first.
Of course, absolutely. But in all fairness to SpaceX, it was labeled, the initial test. So, more work needs to be done. But look, SpaceX is far and away the leader in rocket technology, and hopefully.
I hear, though, they're going to put an electric Tesla engine in it.
We don't need to go there. All right. In other economic news, home prices. You and I have talked a little bit about this. They've declined 1% last month. Average price of a house, folks, in the U.S. right now is $376. In a lot of states, California, New York, Florida, you can't touch houses for that level. But anyhow, that's the national average. But here's an interesting thing, Jeffrey. Sales are down 22% year over year. Why is that? Well, I got a couple theories behind that. One, people that locked in previous low interest rates, they don't want to sell at any cost because, if you locked in a rate 3% or lower, why would you sell? You can't get that now. You'd have to double your to 6%.
Right.
Second, a lot of people are sitting on big gains in their houses. If they sell, they're going to have to pay capital gains tax on it. And then thirdly, I think, buyers don't necessarily have the funds, the down payments to be able to buy these expensive homes. And now with interest rates ticking up, they price themselves out of the market, and sellers may not want to cooperate. So you sort of have a little bit of a standoff here. There's still more buyers than sellers out there. So prices by definition won't go down too much. But
I noticed when my kids, my daughter and son-in-law, they bought a house maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Mm-hmm. And the down payment, everybody wants it in cash. Mm-hmm. Wow. Not in a bank check. And all I got to do is open my wallet. I got a couple of $100,000 in it. But that's only from playing Monopoly.
Well,
but that makes it hard to buy also.
Well, a lot of homes now are, believe it or not, purchased in cash. I can't remember what the number is. It's something like 35% of all houses bought now are paid for in cash. So again, that prices out some of your first-time buyers because they're not in that situation. But as interest rates, again, if they stay above 6, and that seems to be the norm right now, when they tick to 7, you're going to see an exceptional slowdown. We'll keep an eye on that. And again, in some states, California, prices have started coming down a little bit, Florida a little bit, but Florida's a good example. Despite all those issues, You got 800 people a day moving into your state. They got to live somewhere. So it's hard to have prices go down, and they're extremely high. Jobless claims.
It's got a note from Politico. It says a growing number of Democrats are telling Biden to negotiate with McCarthy.
Well, that would be good if he listened to them. But given his track record, everything from the Afghanistan debacle to I could go on and on and on, this guy appears to be tone deaf at best. So hopefully he'll listen to people in his own party and we can get resolution. Again, I fear what you and I agreed to, it's going to come down to the very end, and not until the markets force it will some action take place.
I agree.
Jobless claims, 245,000. That's the fifth out of the last 6 months. It's been over 240. And Jeffrey, right now, it's interesting. We have 1.8 million people receiving unemployment benefits. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, we got like 9.5 million job openings. And yet, we still got 1.8 million people receiving these benefits. Something doesn't jive here.
Why would you go lose it? Why would you go look for a job when you're still getting federal funds to live on?
Well, that's what a lot of people are doing. I mean, but that's going away. That gravy train is over. So now the question is, will those people who are doing that try to go back into the workplace? A lot of employers are saying, hey, forget this 3-day work week. You're coming in the office 4, and some say 5. And the workers are saying, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But that again will work itself out over a period of time, because either companies will lay off people, which is happening. That's why these numbers are where they are. But despite all that, Jeffrey, last month the unemployment rate was what, 3.5%.
You know what? I find it interesting because when I worked for corporate America, I never thought of doing anything but showing up 5 days a week. And a couple of times it was 5 days, like 3 nights, because, you got to get stuff done. And it just seems to me so crazy.
Yeah. But again, when you were working, you didn't go through a pandemic. The pandemic changed a lot of things. But now things, again, pandemic's over. People are getting back to their normal lives, traveling, doing various things. Employers who used to not have an advantage it will become equalized, where they'll probably allow you 4 days working in the office, 1 day at home, maybe. We'll see. But an interesting thing, Jeffrey, 41%, call it 4 out of 10 Americans, currently think we're in a recession right now. I don't see the evidence of a recession right now, but there are things out there, defaults on credit cards rising, defaults on loans rising, banks having to increase loan loss reserves to offset some of this. Jobless claims, 245,000. A lot of corporations doing their layoffs. But on the other hand, incomes still seem good, spending's good, unemployment 3.5%. So, Jeffrey, it could tilt either way here.
Yeah, but yesterday when I was watching Fox Business all day, and every time they had either an investor or a corporate CEO, they were all saying, yeah, we're going to go into a recession. But some of them say it's going to be a very bad one. Some of them say it's a little one, but we're definitely going into one.
I hear the same comments.
And sometimes I think if you say it enough, if the investment people and the corporate people say it enough, it's going to happen.
Just because self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess
right.
They call that. Well, proof will be coming up. I mean, the Fed's going to meet in the month of May. They are likely to have one more interest rate hike and then stay there. Some people on Wall Street are betting by the end of the year the Fed will be cutting rates. I've heard no Federal Reserve officials say that. So I don't know if that's baked into the market, right? But if interest rate cuts are baked into this market and inflation doesn't start coming down, you will see a sell-off on Wall Street. Now, again, I'm trying to give stock advice here, but I don't see any scenario right now where the Fed would be cutting rates by the end of the year.
I heard a few, though, that they're not going to raise it.
Well, they maybe not. We'll see at the May meeting. My belief is that they'll raise at the May meeting and then just keep it there until they see further evidence. Because right now you can say what you want, inflation has come down, but the inflation rate is still above the Fed funds rate right now. Fed funds rate sitting here about 4.25, 4.5, and we still have inflation higher than that. And some people say, yeah, it's coming down, but in certain areas, it's not coming down, like housing cost. Rents are stabilized. They don't appear to be going up as fast in some areas. But, we got more to work through on this.
Creeping up, gas is creeping up little by little.
Oh, yeah. Here in California, we're over $5 a gallon again. So.
Well, that's cheap in California.
I know. I paid $5.40 the other day. All right, another issue that's really plaguing the country, Jeffrey, and this is a self-inflicted Biden catastrophe, is the illegal aliens that continue to cross the border. Yeah, 160,000 a month. They process them. Look, all these sanctuary cities, you live near one of them, New York City, Chicago, Denver. I could name a whole list of other ones. That's where
Are you allowed to say illegal alien?
Yeah, I just said illegal aliens. That's what they are. So they come across the border, and in sanctuary cities, like Seattle, Portland, LA, San Francisco, Denver, New York, Chicago, I go on and on. That's where the illegal aliens go because they're welcome in the sanctuary cities. Well, the problem is they got a place to live. So some of these cities are putting them up in nice hotels in the suburbs. Some of these hotels you can get a pretty penny for. But guess what? They don't have the budgets to support that. So all these limousine liberals that want to sit out here and talk about paying more taxes, be my guest. Because at the end of the day, it costs when you have to house these people. And again,
I did a post a couple of weeks ago. In New York, they have some of them staying at a luxury hotel that I normally wouldn't be able to afford. And when the rates go up, the taxes go up, they're not hurting the well-off people. They're hurting the people who have lower incomes.
If the anecdotal story is really interesting, and I'm going to get to the court story again, but yesterday, when I was supporting a family who had lost a loved one in a malicious car accident, they had an illegal immigrant handcuffed in there, and the judge asked, well, Mr. Whatever your name was, are you going to be able to pay restitution? And the public defender says, no, Your Honor, he's currently incarcerated. He cannot pay the restitution. And so they asked him, sir, do you realize you're going to be pleading guilty to this crime? Yes. Do you realize you can be deported? Yes. Blah, blah, blah. He pleads guilty, and they lead him back in handcuffs. But it was just the fact of a judge asking, well, what about the restitution? Well, Judge, he's in jail. He can't pay restitution. So what do? They defer the restitution. That's one anecdotal story among hundreds of thousands of them. But Jeffrey, you know the effects.
They deport him. He's back in 6 months.
The crime rates go up. It's a drain on city budgets. Again, this is a Biden disaster. We effectively have an open border policy, and they're not doing anything to stop it. And they continue to flood the drugs, the crime, the social services cost. This is it. Again, it's predictable. And again, I went back to what I talked about earlier, from Afghanistan to the border to these social policies. Anyhow, let's get to the
fentanyl over the last.
It's just disgusting. Let's get to the story behind your big news headline here. Biden lied. Jeffrey, you take this segment. IRS whistleblowers. What the hell's going on here with this Hunter Biden thing? Because it looks like a big cover-up.
Well, the whistleblower said that Garland was holding back, and the FBI was holding back the investigation of Hunter Biden and his dad. Okay, and they weren't letting things go through. They weren't doing it right. They were losing stuff, and that's what the Biden lied is about. Because a lot of saying is Biden said he's not going to touch the investigation. Well, then why is Garland messing it up?
Right.
And like I said to you once before, I think that's the one of the best things Mitch McConnell ever did. You can like him and not like him, but he didn't let Garland become a Supreme Court justice.
That's true.
And they say it's a mass, and we'll see. There's going to be some committee hearings that it was a massive cover-up. And if it is, remember when Trump made that phone call from Ukraine?
Yeah.
And 24 hours, they had an impeachment investigation.
I know, classic. I mean, here again, the media is going to cover this up. If you got, again, the allegations of this IRS whistleblower, implying that there is a massive cover-up happening in this Hunter Biden case.
And it's not, I make fun of the Trump thing, but that was for making a bad phone call. This is criminal.
I know. Well, the investigations are ongoing. Republicans control the House. They have subpoena power. The FBI director Wray says these allegations are untrue. Jeffrey, most whistleblowers in my lifetime, most of the time, not all, what they allege generally turns out to be either truthful or a good chunk of it truthful. So I
recommend to everybody, go to the New York Post website if you can't get the New York Post, and read Miranda Devine, because she's usually the first one to investigate and find the news.
She had a good column on that today, for certain. I can.
Peter Schweitzer keeps coming out with books about it that you learn about it first.
Yeah, again, we want to be careful here. These are allegations. They need to be reviewed, investigated, and uncovered and brought to conclusion one way or another. Because Joe Biden is, in a relatively short time, going to announce his intent to run for re-election. And when he does, this will be a cloud hanging over his head unless there's some resolution to it.
Well, Robert Kennedy Jr. won't be taking his COVID shot, so maybe he'll get sick.
Who knows? I don't think. Again, we'll see how that plays. You and I talked about what we thought would be the best candidate for the Democrats, but no one's listened to us. All right, look. Speaking of politics, we're going to close it out with this. Trump has been picking up support. Okay, Vern Buchanan, a congressman from Florida, announced this week he's going to support Trump. Again, I think when the Florida primary takes place, assuming DeSantis announces, DeSantis will win Florida. But it'll be closer than they expect. Maybe not. In New Hampshire, again, the first primary state, not a caucus state, the first primary, Trump 42, unannounced candidate Ron DeSantis 22, unannounced candidate current governor John Sununu 12. Jeffrey, poll after poll, I'm not trying to pick on New Hampshire or Florida, but I'm saying poll after poll, Trump is as strong now as he has ever been since he announced that he's going to run for to be elected.
Well, I disagree with you. I think that Trump's going to win Florida.
Okay.
And
what do you base that
on? Just because the support he has in Florida. I mean, he was the first Republican to win Florida in decades. And if he does that, if you lose your own state, you're in real trouble.
Well, then it'll be over. I mean, Florida is, I'm thinking ahead to the primary schedule in 2024. Obviously, you start off with Iowa caucuses, then you have the New Hampshire primary, then they go to South Carolina, Nevada.
South Carolina, who's running from South Carolina?
Yeah, of course. We got two. We got Nikki Haley and Tim Scott. But in Florida, I believe that's normally in sometime mid-March. Ron DeSantis has to win his home state or, forget it. I mean, if you don't win your home state, if Trump were to beat him in Florida, after, again, DeSantis won the governor's race by 19 points.
You're starting to see articles about who he's going to pick for VP already.
Who DeSantis is going to pick?
No, Trump's going to pick.
Oh, yeah, I don't pay a lot of attention to that at this point. I mean, look, you and I have had this conversation. I'm of the firm belief that if we nominate Trump, Biden will get reelected. I've said it numerous times. I'll vote for him if Trump's the nominee and support him. But again, to me, he's unelectable. Any other Republican would defeat Biden. So in my view, we have a choice. Any other Republican we win, Trump we lose. So to me, now obviously that's where we are now. And millions of things could change. But the problem you have is, a big chunk of those independent voters will not support Trump under any circumstance.
And that's makes the difference in an election.
That's exactly.
You're going to get your vote, your base. They're going to get their base, and it's the independents who make really the decision.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Biden will get 90+% of the Democratic vote, maybe 95. Trump will get 95% of the Republican vote, maybe closer to 90. And then again, the independent vote, which right now, the independents' opinion of Trump, 30% approve, 70% disapprove. You tell me how to win an election when independents account for 40% of the electorate. I'm just a numbers guy. The numbers aren't adding up there. So, but again, we've got a long way to go here.
And, I still say Tim Scott is my candidate. I'd love to see him do well.
Well, he's going to run. So, and a lot of people like Tim Scott. So, again, interesting thing. Again, Pompeo said no. So, Jeffrey, as I think the pressure builds on Ron DeSantis sometime towards the end of May, I think he's going to have to announce one way or another.
Don't forget, I said no also.
Say again?
I said no also.
No. Okay, yeah, you did.
But that takes some of the pressure off of Trump.
Okay, we got about 30 seconds left. What are the headline stories people are going to be talking about next week?
I think people are going to be talking more about Hunter, because I think there's going to be more to come out. At least that's what I hear. Mm-hmm. And I keep looking at the interest rates, and see what's going to happen. And even if you look at the weekly gas prices, because I think that's what made everything go up the most. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to jump up, but they're going to inch up. And that's really going to hurt the economy.
Absolutely. Well, it was interesting. When Trump was president, he had a great relationship with the Saudis. Now that we got Biden, the Saudis not only don't have a great relationship with us, they're actually turning to China and Russia to do business. So sad. I mean,
and remember, just before Trump left, the Saudis were this close to joining the Abraham Accords.
Yep.
Biden let them die.
Oh, yeah, that's another example of his failure. I could go on and on. All right, Jeffrey, look, great show today, good opinions. Thanks for joining me again. And you'll be down in Florida next week, so will I. Look forward to seeing you when we get down there. Folks, that's it for today. Folks, that's it for today. We will be broadcasting next week, either here or Florida. I'm not sure what, but we'll get the schedule straight. And we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend coming up. And as always, we'll cut through the BS, we'll cut through the propaganda, and tell it to you like it is. See you next week.